Hello everyone, and welcome to today's Expedition Erudite, This Week in History edition. When looking at what history has brought to the days of October 22nd through October 28th, there is no shortage of world-changing events. The Cuban Missile Crisis occurred, an event in 1962 which nearly saw the start of nuclear war. The Fair Labor Standards Act, signed the previous June, went into effect, which standardized the 5-day, 40-hour work week and minimum wages. The release of Terminator, which has been prophetic enough already that the timing of its release and our current AI developments is a little scary. All of these occurred this week in history. However, another event also occurred this week in history, and this one doesn't have world-ending implications. So, strap on your knowledge knapsack and join me as we launch today's Expedition Erudite, This Week in History, as we take a look at the first American comic strip. The narrative format used by comics, the line of drawings showcasing the progress of characters and story, is not something that is new. Many ancient cultures used that form of art to tell stories, such as the tapestries of medieval courts. But comics as we know them really began to take shape in the 19th century. Through the era, papers across the country printed cartoon drawings, with political cartoons being pretty common. As the art form grew in popularity, it was only a matter of time before it evolved. And evolve it did. In 1893, Richard Outcault introduced a new cartoon character in the publication called Truth. The character, a young boy, bald with bucked snaggled teeth and an oversized yellow shirt, was often drawn in slums and squalor, allowing him to connect with audiences. However, it wasn't until 1895 that the Yellow Kid made history. On October 24th of that year, the Yellow Kid was printed in the New York World, introducing, for the first time, speech bubbles and recurring characters and stories. These minor changes changed everything for comics. Publication was not simple though. Joseph Pulitzer, the owner of New York World, and William Randolph Hearst, the owner of Pulitzer's rival publication, were in the midst of a business battle called the Circulation Wars. Within this war, Hearst ended up pulling Outcault away from Pulitzer's New York World, setting in motion a large legal battle surrounding the rights to the comic. Outcault had failed to copyright The Yellow Kid, so though he left the paper, Pulitzer was able to hire another artist to take over. This led to both papers publishing their own versions of the comics. Through the Circulation Wars, sensationalism between the two publications grew to extremes, and because they both published The Yellow Kid, the public began referring to them as yellow journalists, and their stories, yellow journalism, terms still used today for sensationalized media. The prints differentiated themselves by the violence within, as Outcault made his version much grittier, in order to show a more realistic side to the slums of New York. Both were highly popular, making loads of profit through merchandising, one of the first comics to take advantage of such income generation. As the Yellow Kid's popularity and merchandising profits grew, other publications took note. Within 40 years, the Yellow Kid's impacts were leading comics to their first golden era, in which Superman, Captain America, Batman, Wonder Woman, and many others first gripped the country. To this day, the influence of the Yellow Kid can be felt across the comic world, as well as our media world, even if we didn't know it. Marvel, DC, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and every comic and graphic novel that follows the format of speech bubbles, continuous storylines, and thrives on merchandising, at least in some part, owe their existence to the Yellow Kid. Thanks for coming along with me on today's Expedition Erudite, This Week in History edition. And until next time, everybody, keep exploring, keep discovering, and keep learning.